More news coming in. We now know Omar Abdullah, the Chief Minister, is now driving to Jammu to take stock of the situation. He shared a photo suggesting late last night Pakistan's failed drone attack directed at Jammu city, other parts of division. He's now driving to Jammu to take a stock of the situation. Let's quickly get in Karthik back into the conversation. Karthik, Jammu region specifically an area of target by enemy fire and facing multiple incursions for that matter, not just mortar firing, shelling across the border, but also multiple attacks that Jammu city has seen since late last night, all of which were thwarted as a result of our missile defense system, the S-400 that we were talking about.
You're right, Shweta. So I think no doubt every time the conflict begins to escalate, Jammu as compared to Srinagar happens to be the first port of attack as far as Pakistan is concerned. So nothing new in that tactic, just as yet, simply because as a function of population, Jammu has more Hindus than Muslims as compared to Srinagar, which is still fairly Muslim dominated. So every time Pakistan wants to launch an attack on J&K, it begins with the northern places and then it comes down to Jammu before it reaches Srinagar. But yeah, to your point, I think we were discussing the pressure which should perhaps be on these two nuclear armed countries to de-escalate, but the ball is purely in Pakistan's court right now, and there is very little that India will be able to do to de-escalate matters unless Pakistan stops its misadventures. Now, Brijesh sometime back was also talking about international pressure that could come on both the countries, including on India, to de-escalate, but the statement which is coming from the US, especially US Vice President J.D. Vance, who incidentally was in India on April 22nd, the date when the Pahalgam terrorist attack took place on Indian soil, has gone back and in an interview to Fox News, he's saying that the conflict between India and Pakistan is none of US's business. And he's saying that there's only this much US will be able to do to get the countries to de-escalate. Of course, he's saying that the US continues to be worried, like the rest of the world, of two nuclear-armed states going head-on-head with each other. But beyond that, he's pretty much saying this is not a US war and US is better off staying out of it. So I think at some point we should be able to bring up that bite from that Fox News interview and play it out as well. But the stand
and while we do that, Karthik, let's also quickly talk about the IMF bailout package that Pakistan is seeking to the tune of about $7 billion. And those conversations are also likely to go forward today. The idea being, of course, that India will put pressure on IMF to halt that funding.
You're right, Shweta, but India has been putting pressure on all multilateral agencies to stop funding Pakistan, because where is that money going? Eventually, if that money is not being used for the development of Pakistan, if that money is not being used to create jobs in Pakistan, and if that money is not being used to encourage capital investment and business activity to pick up in Pakistan, where is that money going? Well, obviously, if that money is going to buy arms and provide those arms to armed terrorist camps, then obviously this is something India has a problem with, and I'm surprised why the rest of the world doesn't have a problem with it. Now, that very important IMF meeting is slated for today, the 9th of May, and India has been trying to put pressure on all member countries and on executive directors representing multiple parts, multiple regions of the world to, for once, make a loud and clear statement that money is not going to be spent on funding terrorism, because the $7 billion, if Pakistan is to get access to it, where is that money going to go? That money is, if eventually that money flows back to a Jaish camp or an LAT camp or a Lashkar camp, then it is pretty much global multilateral agencies funding terrorism. I think that point has to be understood by all decision makers at IMF today. And for once, we've got to make sure that we stop funding Pakistan, which is not just a terror state, which of course it perhaps proudly wears the badge of being one, even though it denies it publicly. But beyond that, it is also a failed economy. Look at inflation in Pakistan. Month-on-month inflation has been growing at 1%. We closed last year in Pakistan at a 10% double-digit inflation. What is the interest rate hovering in Pakistan right now? The central bank interest rate, lending rate, is as high as 12%. India has been able to cut its lending rate, MPC after MPC. look at Pakistan's overall economy and the debt as a ratio of, as a percentage of the GDP of Pakistan. The debt to GDP ratio of Pakistan is as high as 65% for a country which
Absolutely,
has
and
a total
it
GDP of
doesn't,
just about $350
right,
billion.
just doesn't have enough money, just doesn't have enough by the way of its forex savings, obviously, to pay that debt beyond the next 2 to 3 months. Well, let's also quickly take you through some of the breaking news coming in. As I mentioned, Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah is now heading to Jammu. He has now tweeted suggesting that he is going to take a stock of Jammu and get a sense of what it is like on ground as of this morning. So Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister there on his way to Jammu right now. Brijesh Pandey continues to be with us. Brijesh, Jammu has had a very, very difficult day, very difficult night. And as Pakistan takes the escalation forward, moves up the escalatory ladder, the big question is, of course, can it afford to go at war with India? It does look like it's not backing down, Brijesh.
Well, I don't think that the Pakistan can go to war with India. You asked Karthik the question that about why India has to request IMF, or why India has to request other other Western countries about the state of terror that Pakistan has been indulging in and the kind of terrorist activity it has been financing and providing training for. The fact is that the Western hypocrisy shines through when it comes to these examples like these, and this is the reason why day before yesterday we saw External Affairs Minister Jaishankar taking European Union leader to cleaners when he said that that you have no right to teach us, because anything if it happens in say for example UK or France or United States of America, it becomes an act of terror. But killing of 28 innocent people, innocent tourists which were there by Pakistan-backed groups, actively supported by Pakistan in terms of financing, providing logistics, and also providing training facilities to them, is being conveniently ignored. You also saw, how Western press call them gunmen, as if like, as if some sort of another kind of war, or face-off is going between two sides. So this is extremely unfortunate, and I think this is one of the big reasons why Pakistan feels emboldened that it can carry on these activities without getting a serious rap on its knuckle. Once the Western world realizes, and Western powers and these, IMFs and others realize that, it is not in their favor to make sure that, it is their favor to make sure that these kind of terrorist activities and terrorist, situation gets de-escalated, they will. But it's extremely unfortunate, that they don't follow the dictum of what is sauce for the goose should also be sauce for the gander. And that is the reason why, India this time has upped the ante. India is not saying that, that we have to retaliate because, the pride of India has been hit. 28 innocent Indians have been killed by Pak-backed terror groups inside India. And also the fact that, despite India trying to reach out to Pakistan, trying to reach out to other countries to make sure that, that there's an investigation. Also the fact that, India is providing proof that, that these people were involved in this kind of terror attack. But unfortunately, not many are taking notice.